Hello guys and welcome to a new video. Today we will discuss about Hunter and Gunslinger mode, starting from the latest known bugs related to Gunslinger released with the patch notes. Preparing a weapon while in Gunslinger mode can result in being unable to melee. I will also demonstrate some of these bugs in the video, so don't worry about it. In some cases, while in Gunslinger, returning to ADS after cancelling a reload can require too many inputs. ADS stays for aim down sights, by the way. Moving on. Chaining shots while using Gunslinger mode is less reliable than in Hunter mode. But what do you mean less reliable? It's kinda confused because it doesn't say if they mean chaining with the same weapon or with a weapon swap, but man, anyway. In some cases, while in Gunslinger mode, performing multiple actions in very quick succession can cause player to melee instead of shooting as intended. I've seen this happen multiple times on some enemy hunters shooting at me. All of a sudden, they will light melee out of nowhere and it's kinda hilarious. Some inconsistencies may be experienced in terms of sensitivity while using Gunslinger mode. Melee and weapon turn speed are slightly different. It doesn't say if they are slower or faster, but it can be very hard to aim if you get a sudden boost or a sudden drop in speed, so you may want to look out for this one. Gunslinger. In some cases, players can shoot by pressing melee button after spamming a combination of different actions. Like you want to knife a zombie after you jump shot at someone and instead of meleeing, you shoot again. Amazing. Performing a heavy melee attack while you stop sprinting results in returning to the incorrect stance. I guess they mean that the weapon goes ADS instead of Hipfire after an heavy melee. On the website they clarify some myths that are widely spread around the community. For example, sprinting takes your weapon down. It doesn't say in Hipfire while running, and a lot of people think that when you run Gunslinger your gun is sticking out. No, it's not true. Even if you're running in ADS in Gunslinger, you cannot throw anything like the Hunter mode, and virtually the advantage will be not pressing shift to go in ADS. That's the only advantage you get with the Gunslinger mode, in theory. They also clarify movement speed, pointing out a very important thing that I will cover in the video, the FOV difference. Gunslinger uses also an extra button to melee, while Hunter can melee with the left mouse click, same button that you use to shoot a gun. Gunslinger lets you throw consumables directly, and Hunter mode needs you to make the consumable ready with the right mouse click. And again, the FOV is zoomed in Gunslinger, because the gun is always in Hipfire. As a side note, before we start, you guys need to know that you can enable FPS and ping counter by going in the graphics menu. You can use basic, advanced or extended to see a lot of stuff that you don't understand anyway, but you can still get mad about it. Usually it's good not to have all of this on the screen, but it's great for testing your connection. Now let's go into my new office and let's talk about Hunter mode. In Hunter mode we have two stages, Hipfire and ADS, and both need to be triggered by a button. The first step is Hipfire, where your crosshair shows and the camera zooms a little. The second step is ADS, aim down sight, that will give you the full zoom, and the iron sight or scoped aiming mode of your gun. A lot of people argue that in Hunter mode is slower to get into iron sight, but that's just not true. If you have the coordination you can skip the Hipfire and go immediately in iron sight. Practice makes perfect, and as a new player it will give you some problems, but it will definitely pay off in the long run for a variety of reasons that I will show you in this video. The melee in Hunter mode is performed with the same button you use to shoot a gun. No extra button needed, or also faster than Gunslinger because of the bug we mentioned earlier. The most important thing to remember though is that Hunter mode allows you to stay behind a wall with no problems as long as you don't go in Hipfire. When you Hipfire, your gun will clip in the texture and it will get you killed immediately. The FOV in Hunter mode is modified only when you go in Hipfire or iron sight, and as you can see, it's not a small zoom. Even with max FOV, this zoom will make a big portion of the game invisible for you, creating a blind corner. Focus on the left side of the fence and see how much area you are sacrificing in Hipfire or iron sight. I want to show you my control scheme just to give you an idea of what Hunter mode can look like. Movement keys are the default ones, and also jumping and vaulting is in default. I don't like having two move fingers too much on the keyboard, so I keep it this way. But you can split the command in two different keys. By default, crouch is in the control key, but I moved it to C because it's closer to click. And this is interesting. Hunters can sprint and go in iron sight with the same key. I personally find it very good and I will never change it from shift key. Primary weapon and secondary weapon are on the side button on my mouse. I never swap with the Q key because it can block your lateral movement, even for half a second. And if you're facing good players, half a second is a lot of time to get headshotted. If you use Q, your left strafing and weapon switch will be much slower than using the lateral buttons. As for the tools, I like to have my Derringer on slot 3 to quickly switch to it, but some people put there the knife. I personally don't play melee so much in Showdown, so I prefer having my Derringer there, and since I use the knife only on the mobs, I usually use my scroll wheel. I did though switch F with E because F is farther away and I'd rather have more reaction time with E for climbing or opening doors, so I put Dark Side in F because I don't use it that much. The game also allows you to split burning, bleeding and action performed with two different keys, but as I said earlier, I like not to move my fingers too much around the keyboard, so I'm keeping it on default. The map by default is on tab and the ping is by default on mouse 3. I keep them that way because, yes. Also, did you know that you can skip the double ping and ping directly red if you ping once outside the target and press the ping again on the target? Well, now you know. Now it's time for Gunslinger, and we will start by saying that the only noticeable difference in the controls is the fact that you need a new button to perform a melee attack. Not too big of a difference at all, but I don't want to press an extra button. With Gunslinger, we always have the gun in Hipfire mode, and that means that we are suffering from the FOV zoom that we talked about earlier. To go in iron sight though, you only have to press the right mouse button, without pressing shift like in the Hunter mode. And while we run, we can notice a bit of weirdness because the camera is always zoomed, even if the character is not in Hipfire while running. As we said earlier, meleeing with the rifle and shooting right after is lower than Hunter mode, and you can see the difference in the clip. Gunslinger mode though will give you a pretty good advantage when you are holding a corner or rushing a building. The fact that the game goes in Hipfire for you will give you a bit of advantage if you spot someone. But as we said earlier, if you get to cover with your guns out, the gun will clip through the texture and reveal pretty clearly your position to the people outside. When the gun disappears, it means it's showing outside the wall, so be careful when you get to cover in Gunslinger. Also be careful when you are picking a window, if you get too close the same thing happens and you are surely going to get wallbanged. Before I close the video, I want to teach you some stuff about Dark Side Boost. It's possible to learn how to tell how far the enemy is by looking at the size of the orange cloud, and I'll show you some examples. From the size of these orange clouds, I can clearly tell that the enemy is at 60 or 70 meters away. The way to calculate is based on your experience, and there is no way to know for sure, but you can get a pretty good idea on how far they are. In this second example, I can safely tell that the enemy is at 90-100 meters from us, because the clouds are slightly smaller than the others. And this is the simplest example of perfect distance calculation, because when the enemy is barely visible, it means they are at 150 meters distance, which is also the Dark Side Boost range limit. I hope the video was useful, and if it was, please let me know in the comment section below. I will see you guys on Twitch every day at the link in the description. Buy and play whatever works for you guys.
You fight those berries! Fight those berries!